There's this relentless cultural push to always be on. From the moment we wake up to the time our heads hit the pillow, it's hustle, grind, push harder, do more. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, convincing ourselves that if we just keep going without pause, we'll finally get to where we want. But here's the truth. Ignoring the power of rest and recovery is one of the biggest mistakes most people don't even realize they're making. It's not weakness to rest, it's strength. It's not failure to pause. It's part of winning. The Shaolin masters, who have spent centuries perfecting their mind and body, understood this deeply. They knew that true mastery isn't about endless action, but about balancing effort with intentional recovery. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do you push through tiredness, anxiety, or overwhelm, telling yourself that you'll rest later after you check off just one more thing on the list? How often do you find yourself drained, stressed, or mentally foggy because you didn't listen to your body or mind when it whispered for a break? This relentless push without pause leads to burnout, fatigue, and eventually diminished returns on all your effort. Your mind and body aren't machines. They need time to reset, refuel, and repair. The Shaolin teach us that the mind is like a bow. If you keep it tightly drawn without ever releasing the tension, it will eventually snap. The release is just as essential as the tension. Now, rest doesn't mean laziness or avoidance. It means understanding that recovery is part of the process. When you stop pushing for a moment, you allow your mind to absorb, your creativity to spark, and your resilience to rebuild. This is where clarity comes from, where the ideas that will actually move you forward begin to emerge. Without that, you're just spinning wheels in the mud. It's why people who never take a real break often find themselves stuck in the same patterns, unable to innovate or grow. The Shaolin masters don't simply rest randomly. Their rest is intentional and disciplined. Meditation, breathing exercises, controlled movements, all are forms of active recovery. These practices are designed to cultivate presence, calm the mind, and restore balance. In modern life, that could look like a mindful walk in nature, journaling your thoughts, or simply sitting quietly with your breath for a few minutes. The key is to treat rest as sacred, a non-negotiable part of your daily routine, not an afterthought. Another critical aspect is learning to recognize the signs your mind and body give you when you need rest. Too often, people ignore irritability, lack of focus, or emotional sensitivity, labeling it as weakness or lack of willpower. But these are not flaws, they are signals. They are your internal system waving a red flag, telling you it's time to slow down and recharge. Listening to those signs is a form of self-respect, and it's essential for long-term success. We've been conditioned to believe that relentless effort equals productivity and worth. But in truth, relentless effort without recovery only leads to depletion. It's like trying to fill a cup that has a hole. You keep pouring in energy and time, but you never actually fill up. The Shaolin way teaches us to repair that hole, to tend to our internal cup so it can hold more, serve more, and sustain us through whatever challenges come our way. Balancing effort and rest doesn't mean you'll lose momentum. It means you'll build sustainable momentum. Imagine running a marathon versus sprinting all out in the first mile. You wouldn't sprint the whole way because you know you'd burn out before the finish line. Life and success are like that marathon. It's about pacing yourself, taking strategic breaks, and coming back stronger. So, how do you start? First, give yourself permission to rest without guilt. Rest isn't a reward for working hard. It's an essential part of working smart. Next, develop small daily habits that promote recovery. Whether it's 5 minutes of deep breathing, a short walk, or unplugging from screens for a bit. Over time, these small moments accumulate and create a mental environment where your mind can thrive, not just survive. Remember, the biggest mistake is not in resting too much, but in ignoring the need to rest at all. When you honor your need for recovery, you're not stepping back, You're stepping up. You're stepping into a mindset that values balance, presence, and longevity over short bursts of unsustainable effort. And that's the real path to mastery, not just in your craft, but in your life. There's something deeply human about wanting to please others. We want to be liked, respected, needed. But here's the hard truth. If you don't set clear boundaries and protect your energy, you're handing over your power little by little without even realizing it. Boundaries aren't just rules for others. They're acts of self-respect. Without them, your focus fractures, your energy drains, and the very things you're trying to build start to crumble under the weight of distraction and overwhelm. Think about how many times you've said yes to something you really wanted to say no to. Maybe it was agreeing to take on extra work even though your plate was full, or staying late at an event when all you wanted was to go home and recharge. Maybe you avoided confrontation because it felt easier than risking rejection or disappointment. Each of those moments chips away at your energy reserves. And what happens? You start to feel depleted, distracted, and distant from your goals. Shaolin masters have practiced boundary setting for centuries. Their lives demand discipline, and that discipline includes knowing when to engage and when to withdraw. It's not about shutting people out. It's about protecting your space so that you can show up fully where it matters most. When your energy is protected, you bring a kind of focused presence that's impossible to fake. You're no longer scattered or reactive. You're intentional, deliberate, and strong. Boundaries are the invisible lines that mark where you end and others begin. They are essential for mental clarity and emotional balance. Without them, you become a sponge absorbing stress, opinions, and demands that don't belong to you. This isn't just draining, it's dangerous, because when you don't protect your energy, your mental armor weakens, making it harder to handle life's inevitable challenges. But setting boundaries isn't easy. It often means facing discomfort, saying no, and risking disappointment. It means having tough conversations and standing your ground even when it feels lonely. This is why so many people avoid it. They'd rather spread themselves thin than risk the awkwardness or guilt that comes with protecting their own time and space. But here's the thing. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're really saying no to something that feeds you. And the things that feed you, the goals, relationships, and passions that light you up, need that yes to thrive. Learning to set boundaries is a practice of self-awareness. It requires you to know your limits and honor them, even when external pressures tempt you to ignore them. It means recognizing when your mind is clouded by fatigue or stress and giving yourself permission to step back. Shaolin wisdom reminds us that strength isn't just physical, it's emotional and mental too. And strength means knowing when to protect yourself fiercely. The impact of boundaries goes beyond just preserving your energy. When you establish clear limits, you create a space where creativity and productivity flourish. You begin to work smarter, not harder. You focus on what truly matters and let go of distractions that dilute your efforts. This kind of focused energy creates momentum that can carry you through setbacks, challenges, and doubts. Boundaries also deepen your relationships. When you communicate your needs clearly, you invite respect and understanding. People know where they stand with you, and that clarity builds trust. Without boundaries, resentment can build quietly, sabotaging connections and causing emotional exhaustion. But with boundaries, your relationships become healthier, more authentic, and more supportive. It's important to remember that boundaries are flexible, not rigid walls. They can change based on context, energy levels, and priorities. The Shaolin approach teaches us to be adaptable while staying grounded. Sometimes you lean in more, other times you pull back. The key is that the choice is yours, made from a place of awareness and strength, not reaction or obligation. If you want to start setting better boundaries, begin small. Notice when you feel drained or irritated and ask yourself why. Practice saying no to the little things that don't serve you. Notice how it feels to honor your own limits. Over time, this builds confidence and makes it easier to set bigger boundaries when necessary. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's essential. It's how you ensure that you have the capacity to show up fully in the areas that matter most. It's how you maintain your mental clarity and emotional resilience. It's how you turn your goals from distant dreams into lived realities. Without boundaries, you're a boat adrift, tossed by every wave of external demand. With boundaries, you become the captain of your ship, steering your life with intention and purpose. And that is where true power lies. There's something deeply human about the pursuit of perfection. We all want things to be just right. The perfect job, the perfect relationship, the perfect plan. We imagine that once we get everything lined up flawlessly, success will naturally follow. But here's the catch. Chasing perfection is one of the biggest invisible traps we fall into, and it often keeps us stuck where we don't want to be. It's not progress that perfection demands, it's stasis. Waiting for that perfect moment, that perfect idea, that perfect version of ourselves becomes a way to avoid the discomfort of actually moving forward. Think about it. How many times have you delayed starting something new because it wasn't ready? How many times have you hesitated to share your work, your voice, or your ideas because they didn't meet some impossible standard? This perfectionism is like quicksand. The harder you struggle to get it right, the deeper you sink. The Shaolin masters teach us that mastery is a path, not a destination. The goal isn't to be perfect, but to be persistent, to grow through practice, through effort, through trial and error. Perfectionism often masquerades as high standards, and it's easy to confuse the two. But high standards are about pushing yourself with care and discipline. Perfectionism is about fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being seen as less than flawless. That fear freezes us, keeping us in a loop of overthinking and hesitation. We forget that progress is messy. It's filled with setbacks, lessons, and moments where we don't shine. And that's okay. In fact, that's necessary. Imagine the Shaolin monk practicing a form over and over again. Every time he misses a movement or falters, he doesn't beat himself up or stop altogether. He learns from it, refines, and tries again. That's the mindset we need. Movement over perfection, progress over paralysis. Because the truth is, waiting for perfection is waiting to fail before you even start. When we let go of perfectionism, we open the door to creativity and courage. We allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to take risks without guarantees. This vulnerability is not a weakness, but a profound source of strength. It means stepping into the arena even when you're uncertain, because you know that growth happens in the doing. The Shaolin master's discipline is not rigid. It's fluid, adapting, evolving. It's about showing up over and over again, regardless of how perfect the performance is. There's also a deep freedom in embracing imperfection. When you stop trying to control every outcome, you free up energy that was trapped in worry and self-criticism. That energy becomes fuel for innovation and resilience. You start to see mistakes not as failures, but as signposts guiding you toward improvement. You learn to appreciate the journey, the small wins, the unexpected detours, the lessons hidden in struggle. Perfectionism also isolates us. When we hide our flaws or pretend everything is flawless, we disconnect from others. We lose the chance to build authentic relationships based on realness and trust. But when we embrace imperfection, we invite connection. We show others that it's okay to be human, to be vulnerable, and to grow together. This is powerful, not just personally, but professionally. Leaders who show their authentic selves inspire teams. Creators who share their imperfect work engage communities. That's the Shaolin way, cultivating strength through humility and openness. Changing the perfectionist mindset isn't about lowering your standards or settling for less. It's about redefining success. Success isn't about being flawless. It's about being fearless. It's about courageously stepping into the discomfort of imperfection and trusting the process. It's about progress as the path to mastery, not perfection. To start shifting this mindset, begin with small steps. Celebrate the efforts you make, even if the outcome isn't perfect. Reflect on what you learn from each attempt. Practice self-compassion when things don't go as planned. Over time, these habits rewire your brain to focus on growth rather than flawlessness. Remember, perfectionism is the enemy of progress. It keeps you waiting on the sidelines instead of stepping into the game. The Shaolin teachings remind us that mastery comes from persistence, from showing up again and again with an open heart and a curious mind. So release the need to be perfect and embrace the power of progress. This is how real growth happens. There's a common misconception that success is all about pushing harder, working longer, and grinding nonstop until you reach your goals. We often wear business like a badge of honor, thinking that if we're constantly moving, we're making progress. But here's the paradox: without rest, without true recovery, that relentless hustle doesn't fuel success. It destroys it. It depletes your energy, clouds your judgment, and slowly erodes your passion. The Shaolin masters have long understood this balance. Their intense training is paired with moments of stillness, meditation, and recovery. This harmony between effort and rest is what builds not just skill, but enduring strength. Think about how many times you've pushed yourself to the brink of exhaustion, believing that rest is a luxury you can't afford. Maybe you've stayed up late to finish a project, skipped meals, or ignored your mental health just to keep the momentum going. At first, it might feel productive, but over time, that pattern leads to burnout, a state where your body and mind are too tired to perform at their best. You lose clarity, creativity, and the very motivation that once drove you. Rest isn't weakness. It's an essential part of the process. It's the space where your brain consolidates learning, where your muscles repair, and where your spirit rejuvenates. Without it, your efforts become hollow. The Shaolin philosophy teaches us that true strength isn't just physical endurance. It's the wisdom to know when to push and when to pause. That wisdom allows you to show up fully day after day, not just for a burst, but for the long haul. In our culture, there's a glorification of being busy, but that busyness often masks a lack of focus and intentionality. Being busy doesn't mean you're productive. In fact, business without rest can scatter your attention, reduce your effectiveness, and leave you feeling overwhelmed and stuck. When you integrate rest, you create the mental space to reflect, plan, and approach challenges with renewed energy and insight. The idea of rest here is not just physical sleep, though that's critical. It's also about mental rest, moments when you disconnect from distractions, step away from screens, and allow your mind to settle. It's emotional rest, the permission to release worries and stresses that don't serve you. When you honor these kinds of rest, you build resilience. You cultivate a deeper connection with yourself and your goals. Shaolin masters incorporate meditation and breathing exercises as part of their rest. These practices calm the nervous system, reduce stress, and sharpen focus. They don't just recover their bodies, they refresh their minds and spirits. This holistic approach to rest is something we can all learn from. It's not indulgence, it's strategic. It's how you optimize your performance and preserve your passion. Ignoring rest is one of the biggest mistakes you can make on your path to success. It's a form of self-sabotage disguised as dedication. You might feel like you're making progress, but in reality, you're depleting the very resources you need to sustain that progress. It's like running a car engine without oil. It's only a matter of time before something breaks down. So how do you integrate rest without feeling guilty? It starts with mindset. Recognize that rest is part of your work, not separate from it. Schedule it like an appointment. Protect it fiercely. Trust that by honoring rest, you're actually enhancing your capacity to achieve your goals. When you give yourself permission to pause, you build a foundation for sustainable success. The benefits ripple beyond productivity. Rest nurtures creativity. It opens space for inspiration and insight. It strengthens emotional intelligence and empathy. When you're rested, you're more present with others, more patient, more resilient in the face of setbacks. Rest fuels your spirit, helping you stay connected to why you started your journey in the first place. It's important to remember that rest looks different for everyone. Some find it in quiet solitude, others in movement or nature. Some need deep sleep. Others benefit from mindful breathing or a simple break from digital noise. The key is to listen to your body and mind and respond with care. By embracing rest, you step into a cycle of balance that supports your growth. You move from burnout to brilliance, from exhaustion to energy, from noise to clarity. This balance is the secret ingredient that allows you to train your mind like a Shaolin master, not just with discipline and effort, but with wisdom and compassion. True power is found not just in how hard you push, but in how well you restore. That is the path to lasting success. There's a powerful lesson in the Shaolin way that reminds us control is an illusion. Many of us live with this deep, almost unconscious need to control everything around us, our environment, the people in our lives, the outcomes of our efforts. We believe that if we can just hold everything tightly enough, if we micromanage every detail, then success will be guaranteed. But here's the truth. The more you try to control, the more you actually lose control. This paradox is something many of us wrestle with daily, and it's one of the biggest mistakes blocking our growth. When we cling to control, we trap ourselves in a mental cage. We become reactive to every twist and turn, anxious about things outside our influence. The Shaolin masters teach us that true power comes not from controlling the uncontrollable, but from mastering ourselves, our thoughts, emotions, and reactions. The mind trained like a Shaolin master learns to flow with change instead of resisting it. It adapts, responds, and remains steady even in chaos. This need to control often comes from fear, fear of failure, fear of uncertainty, fear of loss. We try to hold tight because we think letting go means giving up. But letting go isn't surrender, it's acceptance. It's acknowledging what is, rather than what we wish were. This acceptance frees up mental space and energy, allowing us to focus on what we can influence rather than wasting it on what we can't. Think about situations where you felt overwhelmed because things didn't go as planned. Maybe a project took an unexpected turn, a relationship changed, or a goal seemed suddenly out of reach. When we resist these realities, we add layers of stress and frustration. But when we shift our mindset, when we loosen our grip and accept the fluid nature of life, something remarkable happens. We find clarity. We see new possibilities. We discover inner calm amidst the storm. The Shaolin practice teaches us to cultivate this inner calm through mindfulness and meditation. These practices aren't just about sitting quietly. They're about training the mind to observe without judgment, to notice without reacting. This ability to witness thoughts and feelings rather than being swept away by them is the cornerstone of true control, the control over ourselves. When you stop trying to control everything, you open the door to creativity and flexibility. You become a problem solver instead of a problem dweller. You start seeing obstacles not as threats but as opportunities to grow, to innovate, to learn. This mindset is what allows Shaolin masters to remain calm and effective even in the most challenging situations. They don't waste energy on resistance. They channel it into action and presence. There's also a deeper freedom in releasing control. It reconnects you to the flow of life, to the rhythm of change that's always moving around and within us. This freedom brings peace because you're no longer fighting an unwinnable battle. You're aligning with the natural order rather than struggling against it. Many people confuse control with discipline, but they're very different. Discipline is about choosing actions aligned with your values and goals. Control is about trying to force outcomes. Discipline comes from within. Control tries to dominate from without. Shaolin wisdom teaches us to cultivate discipline, to train our habits, our focus, our energy, while letting go of the illusion that we can direct every external event. To start practicing this shift, begin by noticing where in your life you're gripping too tightly. It might be your work, your relationships, or even your own thoughts. Ask yourself, what am I trying to control that I can't? What would happen if I loosened my hold even just a little? What might I gain by embracing uncertainty instead of fearing it? This is not easy work. It requires courage because letting go feels risky. But the Shaolin path shows us that courage is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to move forward despite fear. When you practice this courage, you build resilience. You learn that you can face whatever comes your way without being undone by it. The more you train your mind this way, the more you embody true strength. The strength that's calm, flexible, and grounded. This strength doesn't need to control. It trusts. It doesn't cling. It flows. And in that flow, you find not only success, but peace. Letting go of the need to control is not giving up your power. It's reclaiming it from the false belief that power comes from domination. True power is mastery over yourself, and that mastery opens a door to a life lived with greater ease, courage, and joy. And that is the essence of training your mind like a Shaolin master. There's something deeply transformative about embracing vulnerability, especially when it comes to training your mind like a Shaolin master. We often associate vulnerability with weakness, thinking that showing our true selves, admitting our fears, or acknowledging our limitations will make us less capable. But the wisdom from the Shaolin tradition, combined with modern insight, teaches us quite the opposite. Vulnerability is the doorway to authentic strength. Imagine the courage it takes to face your inner world honestly, to see your doubts, your fears, your failures, not as flaws to hide, but as parts of your story that make you whole. The Shaolin masters understand that true mastery is not about pretending to be invincible. It's about confronting the truth of who you are, including the shadows within. This willingness to be seen fully without armor or pretense creates a foundation for real growth. So many people spend their lives wearing masks, afraid that if they show their vulnerabilities, they will be judged or rejected. This fear holds us back from connection, creativity, and ultimately from realizing our potential. When you cultivate the courage to be vulnerable, you invite trust, deepen relationships, and open yourself to learning in ways you never imagined. The Shaolin mindset encourages this openness through mindfulness and self-awareness. They practice observing their thoughts and emotions without judgment, creating a safe inner space where vulnerability can exist without overwhelming them. This practice is vital because it helps you distinguish between vulnerability as strength and vulnerability as overwhelm. It teaches resilience, the ability to be open and yet grounded. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you also cultivate empathy. You recognize that everyone has struggles, fears, and imperfections. This shared humanity connects us, breaking down walls of isolation. A mind trained like a Shaolin master is not only sharp and disciplined, but also compassionate and understanding, both toward oneself and others. There's a paradox here that's worth sitting with. Vulnerability is often uncomfortable, yet it's the path to deeper confidence and courage. It takes guts to admit when you don't know something, to ask for help, or to take risks without guarantees. But each time you lean into that discomfort, you expand your capacity for courage. Think about the last time you felt truly vulnerable. Maybe it was sharing an honest feeling with a friend, starting a new project that scared you, or admitting a mistake. How did it feel afterward? Most likely, it led to some form of relief or connection. That moment, however brief, was an act of strength because vulnerability requires showing up authentically in the face of uncertainty. The Shaolin masters also teach that vulnerability is essential for creativity and innovation. When your mind is rigid, controlled, or defensive, it can't think outside the box. But when you are willing to be vulnerable, to try new things, to fail, and to learn, you tap into a wellspring of possibility. This openness is what allows breakthroughs, not just in martial arts, but in life. Another important lesson is that vulnerability isn't a one-time act, but a daily practice. It's about consistently choosing to face yourself honestly, even when it's hard. This practice builds what I would call emotional muscle. Just like physical training strengthens the body, vulnerability training strengthens your emotional resilience and adaptability. We live in a world that often rewards perfection and toughness, but that kind of armor can isolate and limit us. Shaolin wisdom invites us to drop that armor, not recklessly, but with intention and support, to find the courage to be real. This courage opens doors to deeper learning, to meaningful relationships, and to a more vibrant life. By embracing vulnerability, you also reclaim your narrative. You stop hiding behind stories of fear or inadequacy, and instead, you step into your full humanity. This shift transforms your mindset from one of scarcity and limitation to one of abundance and possibility. So, training your mind like a Shaolin master means inviting vulnerability in, not pushing it away. It means being brave enough to feel deeply, to face your fears head on, and to allow yourself to grow through discomfort. When you do this, you're not weakening your mind, you're strengthening it in the most profound way. This is where true mastery begins. And it is this mastery that carries you through challenges, fuels your growth, and ultimately leads you to live a life that is not just successful, but meaningful and whole. That is the power of vulnerability.